My name is John Passfield, and the title of this reading will be L. M. Montgomery, Video 28, Image Fragments. So here's my novel, L. M. Montgomery, I Gave You Life, a novel by John Passfield. Here's a summary, which is on the back cover. In 1938, with another world war looming and her own personal problems threatening to overwhelm her, acclaimed Canadian author L. M. Montgomery begins to write what she has decided will be her final Anne novel. As she works on the new book, she recalls the days when Anne of Green Gables became a worldwide literary phenomenon and the dilemma that she faced at that time, whether to write a series of novels in which Anne would perpetually remain the child the world had come to know and love, or to allow Anne to grow to adulthood with all the agonizing torments of the one who had given her life, L. M. Montgomery. So, in 1938 then, L. M. Montgomery is a character in my book. She is writing a new novel, Anne of Ingleside. So it takes her 16 chapters of my novel to write Anne of Ingleside. And while doing so, she quite naturally thinks back to the first Anne novel, the first novel in which Anne is a character, Anne of Green Gables. Now, the image fragment is a technical device of the poetic novel. An image fragment is a group of words that does not provide a complete thought, either in the mind of the main character of a novel or in the mind of a reader of that novel. In my novel, L. M. Montgomery, I Gave You Life, there are 10 image fragments in each image unit. There are 4 image units in each chapter of thought. There are 16 chapters of thought in the mind of the main character, and therefore in the novel, this means that there are 640 image fragments in the novel. So just fragments. They're not complete thoughts. There are 640 of them in the 16 chapters. They're all in the mind of the main character. Now, I just said there were 64 image units of fragments in the novel, but I'm going to read just one of those image units in order to give you an idea of the flavor of this technical device. So here's the first image fragment paragraph in the novel. It's in chapter 1, page 4. Here it is. Fragments. A rabid quilting bee. Some rays of darkness. Wasn't too far off. This horrible, empty feeling. Bursting out of my bosom. The early scars still show. Gather flowers to arrange. And Anne without a me. Bound for the rocks. All I saw was dark. There are 10 fragments that are not complete thoughts. Now, I said that an image fragment is a group of words that presents an incomplete thought. It presents an incomplete thought in the mind of the main character, and it presents an incomplete thought to a reader of the novel. So where exactly do these image fragments come from, and where do they go? Well, I believe that the deepest level of thought in the human mind parallels the deepest creation level of the earth. At a deep level below the earth's surface, old rock is broken down, melted down, and new rock is created and sent up to the surface of the earth. In parallel, all of the ideas and emotions, all of the information and imagery that the main character has taken in during the days, months, and years of her life experience, that she has formed as a response to her life experience, is broken down into fragments, melted down into liquid, and when the mind is functioning normally, is built up into complete thoughts in the form of sentences, complete thoughts in the form of paragraphs, complete thoughts in the form of chapters, and complete thoughts in the form of a whole novel or novella. Yes, when you think about it, every thought that you think during a 24-hour period, both consciously and subconsciously, were recorded and printed on paper. So if every thought you think for 24 hours were recorded and printed on paper, I'm sure that you'll agree with me that you would have a whole novel of words to show for your mental efforts. So 24 hours of thinking, printed on paper, a whole novel of words. So the next point that I would make is that each of these image fragments in the mind of the main character, Ellen Montgomery, is being built up into a sentence or a paragraph of thought. So in order to illustrate this, I will take the first 5 image fragments that I read a moment ago. For chapter 1 of main character thought, here are the first 5 image fragments, and here are the chapter numbers in which we'll find either the sentence or the paragraph that each of these image fragments has been built into at a higher level of thought in the mind of the main character. A rabid quilting bee was the first fragment I read. Of complete thought will be found in chapter 15. Some rays of darkness was the second fragment I read. A complete thought will be found in chapter 3. Wasn't too far off. The third fragment I read will be found as a complete thought in chapter 16. This horrible empty feeling, the fourth thought I read, the fourth fragment I read, will be found in full in chapter 4. And lastly, the last one I'm going to mention, bursting out of my bosom, that's a fragment. It will be found in full form in chapter 1. Now for my next reading, I will take one of the 164 image fragments in the novel, and I'll read the passage that this fragment becomes at the next level of thinking of the main character. So the very first image fragment that the reader encounters in chapter 1 of the 16 chapters of Thought in the Mind is, as I read before, a rabid quilting bee, R-A-B-I-D, rabid, or rabbit as in a rabid dog, a rabid quilting bee. So that will be found in full form, in chapter 15, and here it is on pages 117, 18. So it's a fragment in her mind, but when she thinks about it, when she works on it, it becomes a full thought. So listen for that phrase. Oh, you generation of vipers, free to speak, while I could not. Every parasite, every gossip, every assassin of character, all the venom of a rabid quilting bee. I spent all those years in agony. I was crucified in the dark, the target of every axe and spear, covered with honey, covered with ants. I spent those years being tortured while tied to a tree. So it's just a fragment when it starts out in her thoughts. It becomes a complete thought as she thinks about it. So the point is that this is the case for all 164 image fragments which are printed in the text of the novel. Every one of these image fragments is being built up into a complete thought, and the 50,000 word image pattern that these complete thoughts create is the image pattern, the personal myth, the objective correlative, T.S. Eliot's phrase, of the thought of the main character at a nanosecond of the contemplation of her life, the life of her society, the life of her planet, and the life of the earth. These are all the things we think about. So, as a conclusion to this demonstration of the image fragment technique, I would say 3 things. Here's number 1. That this is the normal thinking process of the human being, the taking in of information and imagery and the breaking down of that information and imagery into thought fragments, image fragments, and then the building up of those image fragments into new and complete thought. Now, number 2, secondly, I've said that this is the normal thinking process. An example of the normal thinking process breaking down of a character not being able to turn image fragments into sentences and paragraphs of logical thought is to be found in the sleepwalking scene of Lady Macbeth. Lady Macbeth's mind has broken down. In the sleepwalking scene, she's reached the point where she can form fragments of imagery in her subconscious mind, and by convention, she speaks those fragments out loud as she walks through the castle with her eyes closed while holding a candle. But she cannot build those image fragments up into logical sentences and paragraphs. She has fragments in her mind of thought, but she cannot make complete sentences or paragraphs anymore. Thirdly, I would say that as serviceable as the prose novel is, it presents the surface of our lives in great detail and often gives us a portrait of the times in which we live. I do not think it's capable of showing the full range of image processing of which the human mind is capable, and which is common to the everyday thinking of every human being on earth. We all think this way. Hence the attempt by the poetic novel to develop technical devices which present the way we humans think our way through our lives. So, this is my novel, Ella Montgomery, I Gave You Life, a novel by John Passfield. It's found on Amazon. It's found at my publisher's website, roxmillspress.com, where there's more information. At my website, johnpassfield.ca, there are 2 free books, my planning notebook and my journal. The planning notebook I wrote while I was planning and writing this novel. The journal I wrote while I was polishing the novel, and it's a reflection on all things literary, I guess you could say. So if you're interested, have a look. Lastly, thank you for watching this video.